change. The global platinum industry awaits Anglo American Platinum, or Amplatz's restructuring announcement, expected to cut up to 3,000 ounces of metal from the market and provide a boost for the troubled industry. On the other hand, there are those job cuts. We're joined by Michael Bagram, who's Labour Advisor for the Cape Chamber of Commerce, and Jacques Botha, who's Chief Mining Economist at Pan-African Research. They're joining us for a look at the sector. Let's start with you, Jacques. The hot news is that Amplatz restructuring. Huge consternation when they said they would be restructuring and they would lose 14,000 jobs. Objections from government. Now, in the last week, we've heard stories that possibly they're going to come up with a different deal. How would they be able to do this if we assume they did their homework properly the first time?
David, this is a difficult one. The platinum industry is really, I wouldn't like to, well, I see BlackRock still owns the majority on Anglo American site. They have a big shareholder on Anglo American. The biggest shareholder, it seems, is the government, PIC. So they're in a very difficult situation. We all know of the severe losses Anglo Plat suffered in the last financial period. And at this stage, with a platinum price of just under $1,500, it's very difficult to make a profit. It's very easy to make a loss. The cost of, if you look at Impala Plats and Anglo Plats, the cost to produce an ounce of platinum is about 1,700 an ounce, where the price is 1,500. So it's really the worst mining industry to be in at this stage.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, in that context, if we're looking at a player like Amplatz's, it's really got very little room to maneuver here. So take us through how you see this unfolding, because when you're looking at it from the outside in, it's pretty much looking like it's a company stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Well, you've got a whole lot of problems. First and foremost, the expectation of the double-digit increases is there, and I don't think the union's going to be settling for anything less. We've also got two mighty unions there, NUM and AMCU. AMCU now is the majority union, and to keep that majority, they're going to have to push as hard as possible to get that enormous increase. And you remember, in fact, at the end of last year that we had those problems with the strikes, and the reality was that they've got to get more than that. They're not going to be able to afford it. The other real problem is that they need to cut at least 12,000 jobs from what we understand, and that the government has stepped in and is trying to push them at 6,000 jobs. In other words, cut only 6 instead of 12. And I don't think, they're losing money on some of the shafts, they tell us, and I don't think they have jobs for the people. It's very interesting that we have government stepping in at this point to try and save jobs, but they certainly were very absent when the strikes were happening last time. I suspect in the strike season now, coming up June, July this year, we're going to have some nasty strikes up there. It might help Jacques with some of his figures, because they'll have then probably less platinum coming onto the market, but it's pretty bad for Amplatz. It's going to be bad for the whole industry. I don't think the expectation of the workers will allow anything less than the increases they got last year.
But now, Jacques, looking at, to come back to that question of how much room they've got to maneuver if they've done their homework. Of course, if there are strikes, and the way Michael is talking, it seems inevitable that there will be strikes, even in sectors where they do expect some relief with double-digit increases. Often the negotiations have started with a strike. So it will have the effect of correcting the platinum market. It will of itself withdraw more ounces from the market, and in the long term presumably restore that price supply demand issue.
Yes, well, David, already the latest calculations of the analysts on the supply demand situation in the world see there's going to be there's already a shortage of platinum in the market. So that's already happening with Anglo Plat still having these shafts open. The unfortunate thing is that at this stage the industry is just making a loss, and it's not just Anglo Plat that wants to reduce their workforce. Some of the other majors are, if you read everywhere, they're planning to cut production. That's sort of in the short run, and then because of this, there's a whole shift in the industry where labor-intensive mining. And especially in the platinum industry, platinum is a very hard mineral to mine. Now, I think the people at NUM, National Union of Mine Workers, are aware. They're aware of the fact. They do their homework. And unfortunately now we've got the newcomers, and they still, I don't know how far they are there. They're busy consolidating their power. Government, ANC and government are all aware of the sustainable need for sustainability in the industry, because the way things are going now, it's definitely not going to be sustainable. We're going to have either strikes or just mines have to close because they can do nothing about it. So it really is, and I think Anglo have actually done their sums already with Cynthia Carroll, and now with the new CEO. He knows South Africa, and he's also working very closely with the department. I think they are making their numbers, and I think there is a sustainable solution that will have to come out. I don't think they'll come to the workers and to the shareholders and say, guys, this is a lose-lose situation. I think there should be some win-win situation being worked out. Maybe that's why it took so long. But South Africa can't afford it. The unions, none of the unions can afford it. So I think a solution must come out, and there will have to be. Otherwise, we're going to get lower production, lower and definitely lower employment on the mines, especially on the underground. They're just going to close the underground miners until they can afford. And they can't afford it now, but there is technology available now. You get robots to go and do your mining for you. Again, so you're going to see mechanized, like you have the car factories, very much mechanized. You can get mining, especially underground mining would become more and more mechanized. Above ground mining is already very much mechanized. If you look at these incredible, scary machines, like science fiction stories that are doing the mining up above ground. So mining is moving away from workers, and definitely Kusatu knows you can't kill the goose that lays the eggs that gives you jobs.
As you say,
that's my opinion.
Yeah, as you say, there is contestation on that space, so they each want to deliver as much as they can to the workers. But there's a triangle here. There's the industry, and in this case it's represented by Amplats. There's the union, or the unions in this case as well. And then there's government. Now, is it possible that in this long consultation process, having done their sums, Amplats would have asked government to somehow come to the party, perhaps with some relief from another angle? It would be heartening if government made life easier for the mining industry. I think it's going to come from everywhere. The problem is the unions, because of the split in the unions. If it was just one union, I think that we would have had a solution by now. It's the fact that there's now this fight for membership, and nobody could see to say they're giving in to government or to Amplats, and that's really our problem. But I really believe government and Anglo's really not going to not do anything. They are really seen as the most progressive, sustainable miner, and sometimes the markets actually have it against them that they're so sustainable. They think long term of everything, environment, workers, everything, and not much about immediate profit. So this is very much, but you cannot let Anglo-Plats can't carry on making these incredible losses. So something will have to happen. And I don't know, we're just speculating here. But I think there's some good leadership in all fronts. And I think something good will come out of this.
Well, as Jacques saying, Michael, we are speculating at this stage, but what we are looking at is a cyclical industry. It's determined, its profitability is determined by prices, and that determined by the supply-demand scenario. Now, whether to the benefit or detriment of the workforce, I came across, a comment that the reason the global markets is watching Amplats so closely is to establish whether platinum producers in South Africa can react to market forces. How are you rating that ability right now? Because it will affect future investment flows in a very big way.
Well, the bottom line is that it's not so easy to react to market forces because they've got this political pressure on them. You will see that AMCU, which is now the majority union, which is not under the Kusatu umbrella, is pushing very heavily, first of all, to stop the retrenchment. And I think they're being quite successful. And second of all, to try and match the figures that they got, the increases they got last time. And even with the increases they got last time, that's not sustainable. So I think we've got a large amount of politics pushing here as opposed to market forces. Market forces, unfortunately, for both government and the unions, are secondary in this exercise. We are seeing that government is now having to talk to AMCU, when in the past they didn't want to, because they're in partnership with Kusatu, as you know, And that tripartite alliance is not allowing UMCU to get into that circle. UMCU are pushing very hard, and I know that the talk on the ground amongst the workforce, and we've been trying to speak to some of the shop stewards, are telling us that they're not backing off for anything. They don't see a bigger picture here. They don't see South Africa. They see people who are there on the ground who are not earning enough. They're saying they need to earn more, and they're also seeing bums on seats. You have to have the people there, and they're not going to allow their membership to be retrenched so easily. We know that some of the other mines, we've just heard from Jacques, are going through this retrenchment exercise, and I hear that Aquarius Platinum and Eastern Platinum have cut 1,300 of their staff already. And that bodes ill, because what it means is that Amplats have to follow suit. They have to get rid of some of the people. They just can't have those shafts if they're not giving any money. They can't have them open. If you haven't got a shaft open, you can't keep the staff. Can't keep the staff, you have to go through the retrenchment. That retrenchment will lead to a lot of fighting.
Jacques, I want to break in there, Michael. Sorry, Michael. Just need to ask Jacques on that retrenchment issue. We saw a report on Friday, which we talked about. It was a departure from the previous view that on Reuters that there was a deal, maybe 5,000 jobs instead of 14, maybe 7,000. And another report saying Anglo is up to something, Amplats is up to something. Have you heard any of this? Do you think it's realistic? And why I'm asking that is if the market then turns out that those jobs remain a very high, restructuring, 13,000, 14,000, that could affect the value of the company.
Yes, that's. I've heard stories, and unfortunately some of them are confidential. There were definitely plans, but government got involved, and everybody wants to please everybody. The market is telling us an interesting story. If we look at the platinum price, if there was going to be a closure of the shafts that they originally mentioned, that's either now already discounted in the platinum price, but the price hasn't moved upwards. There's nothing drastically going to happen to a cut in production. That's what the market says. On the other hand, if you look at the Anglo Plat share price, there's also not something fantastically happening for Anglo Plat. So it seems the market is telling us it's going to be very much an in-between solution. I hope not.